Women in Focus, a podcast by British Naturism. Hi, and welcome to Women in Focus, a podcast brought to you by British Naturism. I'm your host, Helen Berryman, and this is episode 7. Today we're going across the other side of the world. I'm going to be talking to Steph McManus, who some of you may well remember from a couple of years ago. When I first got into naturism, she was one of the first people I'd met, and we collaborated together on Body Freedom International project that she had going on. So it was actually through Steph that I began to write. I haven't spoken to Steph for a couple of years now. She has moved from Costa Rica to New Zealand, so off we go now to talk to Steph in New Zealand for Women in Focus, episode 7. So we're going across to New Zealand now, and we're going to speak to Steph McManus. Hello, Steph.
Hi.
So lovely to see you. Thank you for coming on. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're doing, where you are. Who are you?
For sure. So who I am now is completely different to when Helen and I actually first met, which is quite funny. So when Helen and I met, I was living in Costa Rica. I was building a business called Body Freedom that's all about being naked and body positivity. And now I'm in New Zealand and I have returned to nursing, which was my formal career. And my naturism, body positive side, like still going, but it's just not my main event right now. And still focusing on building spaces for women to really be authentic with themselves, which is probably why I'm here, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, because your journey is all about body freedom, and that comes from quite a deep place for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I basically had an eating disorder for a decade, and it got to a point where I was just sick of hating my body. And I'd done quite a lot of like personal development. So I was very aware that my upset and my hate for myself was because I had an expectation of the way I should look, and it just never presented itself in the mirror. So then I just randomly thought about having a naked photo shoot. I got the naked photo shoot, and it was the most transformational, liberating experience of my life. So that's how I jumped into the world of being naked and exploring that element of life.
Do you think there's a difference between the word naturist and nudist or naked person? Is there any difference, or is it a label we just like to present with ourselves?
Good question. For me, nudism and naturism comes with a stigma or a definition that society-wise we've already created. So in my line of work and when I've been working with other individuals, I've kept to the language of being naked as a more neutral space. But in essence, it's not really that different. I guess naturism is more about being in nature, is how I would read it, whereas I don't focus on that. Mine's more about being physically naked, regardless of who you're with or who you're not with or where you are. Nudism probably brings more of like a community feel to it, like doing it with other people, whereas the first element to what I teach others is about witnessing yourself and being naked with yourself personally. So mine's like both the naturism and the nudist elements sort of come into play to what I'm up to. But my main event is about being personally naked with yourself, which I think is distinct from nudism and naturism.
Yeah, you've got your own label.
Yeah.
So I remember once, Steph, you said to me that nudity is your healing tool. Is that still the same? And can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go into how nudity healed me. What it did was it had me be confronted by my reflection in the mirror. And I didn't like that image at all. So it's not like I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh, wow, like I'm actually beautiful. I thought I was ugly and that's wrong. No, like the mirror actually reflected how ugly I thought I was. But I got power inside of that because what I got present to was the reflection in the mirror. I illustrated that. And so by knowing that I illustrated that reflection through time and allowing myself to witness myself day after day, I think it was about 30 days, what I got present to was my image of myself became normal. And the more normal my body image became, the more beautiful and authentic and human and natural my body became. So there was no longer this morality around fat and thin, ugly and beautiful. This body became this piece of natural art that is just like ordinary. And there's something extraordinary about discovering the ordinary in things. And so this ordinariness about my body relieved me and healed me from all of this pain and anguish that I was creating about myself.
And what's wonderful is that you are at peace with yourself now, and you've tried to help other people as well. You do help other people in terms of accepting their genuine, authentic selves, not for what's on the outside necessarily, but how they present as a person.
Yeah, and that's the magical thing about unveiling yourself physically, is that it does this really awesome internal thing where not only is the mask, like we'll call it your clothes, the mask within you is also let go of and unveiled. And when I allowed myself, and the women and even the men that I've brought through into this conversation, when they've allowed themselves the opportunity to be naked and witness themselves, and then the next step is to allow themselves to be witnessed by another, it's unveiled who they are for themselves internally, and they've uncovered aspects of themselves that they've never seen before because they've been buried underneath family expectations, societal expectations, what they should and shouldn't do. And the physical act of nudity has allowed them to see who they are beyond all of that. And it's just so beautiful and precious. So that's part of the healing and medicine that I talk about.
Yeah. So lots of women say to me, and I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times as well, I don't have the body to be naked.
Yeah.
What do you say to that? Or what would you say to that person?
I get it. Like, I really get it. And everything magical happens in the space of being uncomfortable. And having that thought, I would say, is the gate to being like, okay, I'm going to jump out of my comfort zone. I'm going to take this body and I'm going to discover what it is being naked with it.
So now that you're moved back to New Zealand and you've returned to nursing, is nudity for you just something you know, if you feel like being naked, then you'll just go and be naked, or if you want to hang out and be naked with friends, you'll just go ahead and do that? And how does it sort of present itself to you daily now?
There's a few things that I do that are probably, to a lot of people in the nudist and nature space, maybe quite subtle. Sleeping naked is a really important thing for me. Now, for some people, that might seem really simple and like, oh, that's nothing. But for a lot of people, and including my partner, and I hope he doesn't hate me saying this, he didn't even think about sleeping naked, like it wasn't even part of his space until we got together. And he's even noted better sleep and better peace with himself inside of sleeping naked, and even the connection between two people and like skin to skin. So funnily enough, I actually work in neonatal intensive care, and we focus on a lot of kangaroo care, which is about putting a naked baby on a mother's naked skin. And there's a lot of like health benefits inside of that. And I believe, and I'm thinking about going into a research route about this, that even as an adult, having that skin to skin has a lot of like physical health impacts on you.
Yeah.
Positive health impacts in terms of like helping with your heart rate and your breathing and stress levels.
Yeah.
It'll be the same as like hugging a person. You know that saying, like if you hug a person for 30 seconds, it like alters your whole mood. Nudity has the power to do that as well. So that's one of like, I guess, the daily things that I do. Other things that I do is that if I'm in a community space, like I'm going to the beach, I would ask my friends if it's okay to be naked, and I would go naked. They wouldn't, 9 times out of 10, they're never naked. I'm the only one naked in these spaces. But in some friend groups and social activities, I will ask to be naked. And if they're okay with it, then I'll just go be naked.
And most of the time, your friends are okay with that. They don't say, oh, Steph, put your clothes on, woman. Or
No, like they are pretty good with it. It does definitely depend on who I'm with. Like I can definitely read the room. And I appreciate and respect that nudity does have a stigma, and people's relationship with nudity is not the same as ours. And I definitely don't want to offend anyone. So that element of permission is there. And surprisingly, a lot of people in my life are okay with it because it's a Steph thing. And they know it doesn't mean anything bad or negative. They know that it's simply me expressing myself. And it's been awesome to be able to, over the last few years, because it's probably been about 5 years now, maybe even longer, I've cultivated these relationships with my friends where that is a natural part of who I am and in our relationship with them, that I have the freedom to ask that I may be naked, which is quite cool.
That is cool. You surround yourself by people that know you and, will respect your decisions as well. Have any of your friends got naked with you just because?
Not in New Zealand. It's definitely a different ball game in New Zealand. In Costa Rica, when I was living there, and in America, yeah, very open to it. Very open to it. Yeah, like there's been amazing opportunities in America dealing with like the fears and insecurities of both men and women. And being shocked by the first thought on a male isn't, I want to see a naked woman, let's go do it, which I think is part of the narrative that comes with being in naked spaces, that men are going to objectify. I've never experienced that. And still to this day, if I'm having this conversation with a male and they talk about the insecurities, I still get shocked that that's not their first thought. It's not their conversation around being naked with me. Their conversation is exactly what you were saying before. I don't have the body to be naked.
See, people often write off men. They assume they're not insecure. But of course, everyone is. Everyone has some sort of insecurity, especially around nudity. Do I measure up in some way? In our case, is my boobs too big or is my willy too small? We've all got this going on. And what I find great about naturism or with social nudity is that none of that matters at all. You could have 3 heads and 17 arms, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, totally agree. And every time I'm in those spaces, you're being seen as a human being. And there is this space for you to just be you, which is so great and so liberating. And for every single person that's gone through the conversation of, I don't have the body to be naked, and I've managed to hold their hand and guide them into this naked space, they've never looked back. Whether it was just a one-time event or they've created other opportunities for themselves past that first event, it's been transformational for them. And they've been absolutely shocked about how they felt while being naked and also how they've felt other people perceived them while being naked.
We spoke briefly about clothing, and interesting word is that you used mask. So in other conversations that I've had with women, clothing is used as a judgment tool. I've heard that a lot. Clothing actually sexualizes the body. Clothing is a mask. What do you think about those different definitions and what clothing means to you? I mean, for me, it's a practicality. And if I have to go to a social event where I have to wear clothing, I get proper anxious, like, does my bum look big in this? Or have I got a muffin top? Or, my boobs under my arms or whatever it might look like. But well, how does that feel to you? How is that with you and clothing? And
yes, I have 2 things to say to this. One is the time that I get the most anxious is when I have to put togs on, whether it be a full suit or a bikini. And that's when my biggest judgment of myself comes out. Oh my gosh, do I have the body to wear a bikini?
Interesting. Yeah.
My happy place is to go swimming naked. I have more confidence swimming naked than I do with a bikini. And it's just so interesting that as soon as I start putting clothes on my body, as you said, that's when all the concern and the insecurity comes up. And then on the flip side, what nudity has given me, and part of the medicine, is that because I'm so secure in myself, and I have the awareness of that insecurity, and I can not push it aside, but I can be like, okay, thanks for speaking, but actually who I am is someone who's secure and awesome and glorious. It's given me the freedom to wear what I want to wear as part of my self-expression. So I remember growing up and I would want to wear certain things because I would see them in a catalog or see them in a store. And then as soon as I'd put it on my body, I'd be like, oh no, I don't have the body for this. And I would buy these expensive clothes and never wear them because I was so worried about what people would think of me and them judging me. Like, does this look right? Am I wearing this right? Have I accessorized this correctly? And now nudity has given me the freedom to wear what I want when I want it. So I could wear a ball gown watching Disney movies if I really wanted to, because that's what I feel like wearing. Not that I've done that, but it could be an opportunity in the future because I no longer have that. It's like I've broken down that experience of being judged by another. It's going to happen, but it's not something that rules my life anymore. So on one hand, I experience the anxiousness, but on the other hand, I'm like, wow, people don't judge me the way that I think they do. So now I can mix and match my clothing. Now I can wear what I feel like I want to wear.
Yeah, that's brilliant, actually, because you're managing your own expectations of yourself. So the way I see it is, would I think that about someone wearing a super sexy dress? Probably not. So the chances are they're probably really not thinking that about me either.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of try and manage it for myself anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And that whole world of being sexualized is so interesting because I grew up like unfeminizing myself because I didn't think I was gorgeous enough or beautiful enough to be that woman that could be looked at by a man. So I am heterosexual, so I was always craving that validation that I'm gorgeous and beautiful, and nudity has given me that. So I now have the freedom to wear the sexy dress because I want to be seen and noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have the freedom to see myself as someone who is sexy. We get so caught up in boxing ourselves, like I'm shy or I'm just the girl next door or whatever your version of the adjective is. And nudity allows us to unbox ourselves so we can actually try on different things. I can try on being sexy today. Tomorrow I can try on being the girl next door. And that's an element of healing and medicine and freedom that nudity's given me as well.
And just because you either call yourself a naturist, nudist, doesn't mean you're naked 100% of the time. I do own some clothes.
I get that assumption all the time.
Yeah, I'm not really into popping to Sainsbury's for my weekly shop with nothing on.
Yeah, and it's not 100% of the time I'm sitting on the couch watching TV naked either. It's just so funny. Like my friends would be like, "Are you going to be naked when I come out?" And I'm like, "No, that's not how this works. Like, I'm not naked 100% of the time."
And you've learned so much in the last 5 years since you did your photo shoot about yourself and about other people. And to learn that that's come from just being nude, it was a big deal for you to take that step and do it. And it changed your life. And for me, doing exactly the same, but in a slightly different scenario, again, involved a photo shoot and being naked at that photo shoot eventually. And it changed my life, and that was coming up 4 years ago. So I think once you've owned it and accepted your body and you learn to look at it in a different way than perhaps you did 5, 10 years ago, I think if humans can do that, then they're reclaiming something back for themselves.
Yes. And the awesome thing about it is that you can be naked in one area of your life. Like, for example, you find a nudist group or someone to support you jumping into that world. But then the impact on the rest of your life is phenomenal. Like, my relationships with my friends and my family are so distinctly different to what they were before I witnessed myself and confronted myself with my body image and got naked. Like, my sister is now my best friend. My mum and I no longer argue. And I was at a point where I was going to completely cut her out of my life because she frustrated me. And now we have the most magical relationship. I have the most amazing partner who I'm going to marry and have kids with. And there was never a thing.
Does he know that yet?
Yes, he does. We talk about it all the time. And that's the awesome thing. Like, I have the freedom to communicate these things. Now there's such a security in myself that I can have these conversations even on our first date and not have to wait for validation or for him to feel the same. I can express my feelings and my vulnerability because that's who I am, which I discovered through being naked. And then the most recent transformation is I've jumped back into the nursing world. And in 2019, before I discovered the naked space, I was a very timid, scared nurse. Like, I would walk into work with migraines and anxiety because I was worried about what patients I was going to receive and whether I could be a good enough nurse. And now returning after this huge transformation that we've been talking about, this 4 or 5 year transformation in the world of nudity being the medicine, I've come back to nursing and I am a really good nurse. I have the security in myself to say when I don't know something. I can ask for help. I have the most amazing, fun, joyous relationships with my patients and their families, and also my colleagues. Like, I'm a joy to work with. And I also have the freedom to say that about myself. When people would be like, oh, you're tooting your own horn. I'm like, no, this is who I am. And I'm not naked in that space. I'm not naked at work. So like the world of like building relationships with colleagues and even like sales or asking for a pay rise and having that confidence in your professional life and in your relationships, being able to mend them and create them so that those relationships bring you joy, that all can be created inside of the space of discovering yourself naked. It's just phenomenal. I could rave about it for ages.
Please do. That's why we're here. But look, there's so many women and men out there, like I said before, that probably don't think they've got the body, or no one wants to see that. If someone listening is hearing what we're saying and just doesn't know where to start, I mean, it's all very well to say, just take your clothes off and you're naked. What would you say to people? I mean, it's a big leap of faith and it's a big step for some people. You did mention sleeping nude if you don't already. That is, oh my God, life changing as well, especially if you're of a certain age and menopausal. You know, if you if you don't sleep naked, just do that. I mean, who invented pajamas? But yeah, how would you say to someone interested but nervous?
First of all, I would say validate your feelings. Like, they're so ordinary. And you'll be surprised that probably every single human being around you is probably thinking that same thought. And then again, it would depend on who I'm talking to. But yeah, sleeping naked is probably a good start because it is quite private. Another activity or opportunity I would suggest is actually, like, when you're in your bedroom, having a moment to stand naked in the mirror and really taking in your own image and being with all the upset, frustration, or beauty, or anger, or whatever feelings come up inside of that space, being with all of those emotions, and then even journaling afterwards. What came up for you? What was your experience? How did that feel? That could be a really awesome start for some people. And then for others, if you already have magical relationships, because I can appreciate that some people may not feel comfortable doing this, actually reaching out to someone that maybe you're already intimate with, or someone you're very close to, whether it be a best friend or a sister or whoever that person is for you, and even having a conversation about being naked without being naked, and just seeing how that feels, just wearing the conversation. And then if you do feel confident, getting naked with that individual. So those would probably be sort of like the beginning steps. Or actually the main one that I usually get my friends to do, especially in America, is to go to a nudist environment, like a nudist beach, and getting naked in an actual nudist space, because then you don't have to worry about being naked. You're allowed to be naked. And then all you have to do is sort of deal with what's coming up for you. This is all about you. It's all about you, the person who's discovering this for themselves. And this is all about how I like to create it, is it's all about focusing on the freedom you want to cultivate in your whole entire life. If you're up for that, liberating yourself and discovering who you are on a level that you've never discovered before, this is a tool that you can use to do that. So it's looking at the bigger picture, not the moment of being naked. And I think focusing on that bigger picture and creating that bigger picture for yourself will be the vehicle and the accelerator to discovering nudity as your medicine.
Brilliant. What challenges do you think women face within a nude community? I just changed my own wording there. It says naturism, but yeah, within a nude community.
Nude community. I think the sexualizing and the objectifying, and what I've discovered working with men and women is women are more concerned about how other women think about them.
Yeah, I think we're our own worst enemies at times.
Yeah, so I would say those barriers, and again, like that thought of I don't have the body, and that also ties into the growing up as women being sexualized and objectified. We're always scrutinizing who we are so we can fit into those norms, whatever that norm is for a human body. And if we're not that, all that doubt and insecurity and shame comes through. And then also the fear of like what men might think and how they may view a woman and if that's safe and unsafe as well.
Yeah. So it's about relearning behaviors because for many years as women, we've been taught to feel a certain way or to look a certain way. And the measuring stick that we've given ourselves is inaccurate. And it's like you say, it's acknowledging yourself. It does start with nudity because maybe we're all vulnerable in our naked state and we're all the same.
And yeah, that's part of the medicine is when you're being naked, your vulnerability has time to shine. It has a space to actually show up. And then you'll notice that you're like everyone else. And I remember reading this saying, and it's lived with me. When you discover how ordinary you are, that's when you become extraordinary.
Love it. It's true, actually. So each of the different women I meet in naturism, once they've tried it, it's not something that they go, it means something really different to each and every one. And I think being nude or a naturist or a nudist or however you want to label it is a different experience. Everyone gets something different out of it. And if you're gleaning the positives out of it, it's win-win, right?
For sure. And everything that's happened in your life and in my life and all the listeners' lives, all the most amazing stuff has happened because you've probably breached that comfort zone. You've had to get over something for yourself. And that's all that this is. If you know that that same magic is at the other end of jumping into this zone, then it's so worth it.
Love it. Um, so how can men help women feel more at ease?
Good question. It could simply just having that conversation. Like if, well, again, it would depend on who you're talking to and where you are. But I would start off having that conversation like,
What are you looking at?
yeah, or simply being like, I want you to be comfortable. What do you need from me? Or the guy could simply be like, I have a concern that you think that I'm being XYZ. I want you to know that that's not the case. What do you need from me? Like, I think all of this is created because we just don't talk about it. And I think if we just had conversations and asked the vulnerable questions with our peers, a lot of that would be alleviated. Yeah, I guess, well, that's what I would say. The conversation.
Yeah, putting your thoughts out there, your feelings out there, and being heard.
Yeah, and that's the same for women too. Like if you're feeling uncomfortable, and this takes a lot of courage, I get that. I'm not saying this is the easiest thing in the world. And I think that's why I'm stumbling on this question because I'm like, I know that this is so hard.
Mm.
But being able to even say to your friend, like, oh, this is what I feel uncomfortable with. And saying it in a context that you're willing to work through it and not have it be black and white, trusting that it may not be the way that you think it is.
And it usually isn't, but it is about calling it out, having that conversation. If someone is making you feel uncomfortable, they might not know that, or there might be a real background reason why they're doing that, like a physical reason that we can't see. So you're right. It's about having the conversation and putting it out in the open.
Yeah.
When people learn that you, for want of a better word, are a nudist or clothing free when you want to be, is there an immediate assumption of what that is? Do
Mm.
people not want to tell people they might be a nudist or an naturist because of how people might react or what they think comes with nudity and naturism?
Yeah, so it's been interesting for me because I've jumped back into the professional space as a nurse, and it's actually against my practice to be a registered nurse and then declare that I'm a naked healing practitioner or have a naked business. So that element of being cautious about who I share it with is definitely there. because people do have that preconceived notion that it's inappropriate. I think that's it. Like, I can't say I've had anyone actually like describe what their version of inappropriate is or where their mind goes to, but in essence is that's inappropriate, you're inappropriate. So there's that label of me being inappropriate. So that's there. But then most of my life outside of that, I think because I'm so confident in who I am and what it is for me, that it never leaves questions for other people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense.
My partner actually isn't, I'll say, okay with it. Like, he still can't wrap his head around what it is, because for him, all he thinks is that I get naked with other guys.
Right.
And for him, he wants my naked body to be his. That's what he gets, because he's my partner and that's special and sacred to him. So he doesn't like the idea that I get naked with other people, because he wants that to be just his, to make our relationship distinct from every other relationship. So it's been interesting being in that conversation with him. But I've also said to him that he can have all these thoughts and feelings and assumptions about what it is, but until you've actually been and done it, you won't actually know what it is. Like, you actually have to jump into the naked space to really get what it is. Like, Helen and I could talk about this forever and ever and ever and use all the adjectives under the sun, all the vocab, but until you've actually done it, you don't really get what it is. And so I always preface that conversation when somebody comes to me with an assumption. I'm like, well, until you've done it, come back to me and we can have a conversation about it.
I couldn't have put it better myself. But yeah, it's other people's assumptions, and you've just hit the nail on the head. Like, until you've done it, there's no amount of podcasts, articles, TV, no amount of that will ever describe the feeling or the emotions or the experience until you go for yourself. It's like before, within my journey, Simon would bang on about naturism and, you should try it. It'll be good for you. It'll be this, it'll be that. And I was like, no. But it wasn't until I actually went for myself, could I see for myself it was nothing like I thought it would be. And it was quite unremarkable. And that's why, for me, I'm public about what I do and my naturism, because I was so wrong. And if I was so very wrong, so many other people are wrong.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we can offer to the world, or Steph can offer to the world, men and women alike? I mean, the podcast is Women in Focus, but we actively encourage men to listen too, because they can perhaps learn something, a different perspective from a female's point of view. And each lady's story or journey or experience is different, and each and every one of us takes something different away with us. Is there anything else you can share with the world?
Going back to initiating and discovering nudity for a first timer, and I think I'm specifically speaking to the listeners who have already jumped into the space, creating a space for other people to be able to share their feelings and be vulnerable is really important, because everybody is going to have a feeling or a thought or a fear around being naked. And it's not about asking or forcing them to discover it because you know the magic. It's all about hearing their fears and thoughts. And they might not want to do it, like it's a tool and it doesn't fit everyone. And I think sometimes nudists and naturists can be perceived as people that push it on other people. And I just want to highlight that people's feelings matter. And we get to be conscious of that. Yes, we've seen the light, and we get to be responsible for that, and we get to demonstrate that love, and we get to demonstrate that joy, not only in being naked, but also in the words that we use and how we create community for other people to join in and be part of it and discover it for themselves as well.
Yeah, that's very well said. So if you could have a word with your, let's say, 15-year-old Steph, what would be the biggest bit of advice you would give her?
Oh my gosh, first of all, I'd hug her and cry. There's so much there for me, because 15-year-old me was so worried about how people would see her. Like, this is the initiation of my eating disorder, So first of all, I'd hug her and say it's okay. And oh my gosh, this is such a tough question. You're loved and wanted exactly the way you are.
Do you know what? It's taken me years. And if somebody had pulled me aside at 15 and said it was okay, you're okay, yeah, I might have had a different or speedier route to freedom.
Yeah. It is interesting I say that, like I say those words because I swear I grew up hearing those words. But then I think about the journey I've taken. I'm like, I wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone through all that pain. So some part of that advice is also like, everything's going to be okay.
That's the best thing, actually, because everything will be okay. It might take a little while, but it's what you do with, life's journey, and the choices that you make do shape the people that you become. And it's part of the path that, with different paths leading to the same sort of feeling of freedom and value, self-value, self-worth. And for some, it takes a lot longer than others.
And that sums up the healing power of nudity, is your sense of value and worth. Goes from probably being on the floor, which was me, to being infinity. Like there is no ceiling.
We should have nudity within politics.
Imagine that.
Yeah. People might actually collaborate with each other and come to some sensible decisions in the world.
Exactly. People might actually listen.
Yeah, let's sort the world out, Steph. Naked politics.
Exactly. Let's start.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there then, Steph. I think you've just come off the night shift, right? It's late where you are, or early. Which way is it?
It's early. It's 9 a.m. But yes, I've just come off nights.
You need to go to bed, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for staying up.
Thank you so much, Helen. Amazing.
Yeah. Thank you so much to Steph.
No worries. Bye.
Wow, that was amazing. Steph's always very insightful. She's got a wonderful story, and I love the fact that she uses her learnings to help other people. Indeed, she's helped me. Like I said at the beginning, when I first got into naturism, she was one of the earlier people that I'd met. And the confidence that she gives you with her own strength and her own journey is inspiring. For Steph, it's not about being a naturist or a nudist, but about accepting the skin that she's in and learning to be happy and value herself. And by learning that, she's helping other people to do the same. It's wonderful. I think the best line of the day is when you discover how ordinary you are, is when you actually realise how extraordinary you are. We'd love to hear from you at Women in Focus, so please email us, get in touch. Please like, subscribe, rate on whichever platform you listen to your podcast. It really does help with our engagement, and it really does help for us to bring women in focus. Till next time.